Hi guys, I hope you're doing well. I just wanted to show a few of these lithops. There's been a fair amount of chatter out and about lithops that are not changing yet and people getting really worried that something's wrong. And so I just wanted to show a couple varieties in particular. And if I can keep these guys from, I was just rearranging them and so they're not all set nicely. I was trying to make a little hole here. All right. These guys in particular, sorry, my plug-in fell there. These guys in particular, the aucampiae varieties, particularly the brownish ones that look often like this. Let's see, there's some more here. Probably these were, although they weren't labeled with their particular cultivar. I believe this is a baby here. These guys, for me, at least for the last few years, have always split much later. And a lot of the other varieties, the lighter or brighter ones, will be almost done or completely done. Some of these back here are completely done, and I have some others elsewhere that are all split and happy. And most of the lighter varieties are at least progressing by this time. This is the middle of March now, I guess almost the end of March now. Wow, yeah, I think it is the end of March now. I've been a little out of it. But these guys tend to speed up a little bit, but that's not always the case, as you can see, because neither of these have split at all. Now, there's nothing wrong with them, not even kind of. They're nice and firm. There's new sets of leaves in them. I've checked their roots, not recently, but these guys are several years old that I've had them, and they were a couple years old when I got them, but I've had them for a bit, and so they're fine. They're just doing their thing. Well, I guess I shouldn't say but. So, if your guys aren't splitting, but they're looking happy, they're probably just fine. They're probably just a slightly later splitter than some of the others. And it really depends on your environment too. It depends on how much sun they're getting and how much water they got during the year. If they haven't got enough water during the year, they also can split later. And that may be some of these guys' issue this year in particular. Because they haven't had quite as much water as I usually would have given them, just because I've been kind of sick. And so they got water a bit later in the season than normal because they didn't get it earlier in the season. But now you can see they look like they were just doing nothing for a really long time, but you can see there's happiness going on. And they're all good. They're all nice and firm. There's no issues with rot or anything, and they're doing just fine. It just takes a while. The one thing I do always recommend is if your lithops is taking a long time to split, and this is the first year that you've owned it, it's a really, really, really good idea to check the roots. And I know I feel like a broken record saying this all of the time, but I never know who has watched multiple of my videos and who is just coming in right now. But I'm going to show a different lithops here. I will cut this off and go to a different shot in just a second here and show you what they can look like on top, and there's actually lots of problems going on. And if you wait too long, they'll be a goner and possibly infect other lithops depending on what's going on with them. But the aucampiae varieties in particular, which I'll try and put a little picture with words on it or something in here with the name on it, because a lot of people haven't heard it pronounced. They've seen it though, and if you saw the name, you would recognize it. It's aucampiae, I believe. I should have written it down, but I will put a screenshot in of the name, so in case you're wondering, you can look at this guy and these guys. There's many specific different colors and varieties within that species. But for me, it seems to be one of the later splitting species. For me, at least here in Idaho, where I am. And various other species might split later other places, depending on their conditions, I'm sure. So you just kind of have to pay attention to where you live. But it seems like the most common type that I see in the photos of people going, oh no, what's wrong? My guys aren't splitting, are these varieties, and especially the brown or just kind of average looking ones seem to be, for whatever reason, kind of slower at splitting. All right, I am going to sit down and show you another lithops. I'll be right back. Alrighty. So pardon the shaky camera and my shaky voice there standing up. I have been really, really weak, for those of you that don't know, and going through some medical stuff and changes in medications, and so I have been down for the count. And this is the first time I have stood up and been able to look at my plants in quite a while. So anyways, pardon the shakiness of everything, but here we go. Alrighty, so this little guy here looks pretty similar. From the top, was the same variety, etc. Just not doing a whole ton. You could see a little bit of green, you know, towards the bottom, which is fairly normal. But it started getting lighter and lighter and lighter colored. You can see it's a little bit almost translucent kind of colored here, despite being under the grow lights. And that can happen sometimes. That's not highly unusual when they're changing their leaves, the outer leaves sometimes, especially if they don't split. If the inner set is smaller, the outer set just kind of gets translucent and slowly shrivels. So again, I just was keeping an eye on it. I don't even know where this guy came from. I was racking my brain trying to figure this out, where he came from, if he was a seedling or what happened, because he's all on his own. And I think I separated him. I think he was in with a larger cluster that I had, and he was just really small, and his roots weren't thriving, and he just wasn't doing well. And so I pulled him out and separated him from the larger cluster, I believe. But anyways, he wasn't doing great, but I was kind of watching him and babying him. But today, I decided to put 3 of these smaller ones into a pot together that I had been watching separately, but they're much happier together and they were doing fine. So I went to put them all together. And when I unpotted this guy, this is what we find. And this is not good. This is not salvageable. This is not, it doesn't matter what anyone tells you. I see posts all the time with pictures like this, and people say, is it salvageable? And other people say no, and then people come behind and say, don't listen to them. I've heard of people saving lithops that are completely detached from their roots. Well, yes, detachment from the roots is one thing, but rotting or completely dissolving the meristem halfway up into the body or even partially up into the body, there's just no rescuing that, sadly. It kills all the viable tissue that could possibly grow more. And so you just can't resurrect them. If just the roots had broken off and the full body of the lithops was here, I would agree you could try and root it. Sometimes that works out really well. If there's a little bit of the meristem left, you can get a new taproot that will last. If there is no meristem left, sometimes you can still grow roots out of the body of the lithops, but the next year when it sheds its outer leaves and changes, all of those roots will fall off with the outer set of leaves because they are not attached to the right spot, basically, to simplify it a bit. So this lithops is not viable. However, if I hadn't pulled him out and looked at him from the top, you can see how it would look like it's okay for a really long time, and then all of a sudden, bang, it's gone. Now, in my experience, this is not some kind of a systemic rot or anything like that. This is simply the lithops did not have enough energy last year to make a new set of leaves, and I was a little worried about that, but you know, you don't want to call it until you have to. And it was feeling not real firm and not likely that there was a new set of leaves in there, but you never know. And especially with these guys, when they're a little bit behind on their growth cycle than the other ones, then it can take a while for them to actually form a new set of leaves. And as long as they're all intact and doing okay, then I am very patient. But this is just kind of normal die-off if there is no new set of leaves. Sometimes the outer set continues to live for quite a while, but this guy has lived as is, about this size, for I think almost 2 years now, and has not changed or anything. So eventually the life cycle of these outer leaves just there's no way they can keep surviving, and so they just give up and die. And this is often what it looks like, in my experience anyways. Now, this can also be caused from overwatering and rot, like especially if this was all mushy and super soft and squishy, but I'm squeezing quite hard on the sides here. You can probably not tell from the video, and it's still very, very firm. This is not overwatering per se, and the roots even look quite healthy. Again, it just got to the end of its life cycle. It hadn't had enough oomph and energy to produce a new set of leaves. Who knows why? There could be many, many, many reasons. Again, I'm about 99% positive that this came out of that large cluster that I was just videoing a minute ago. And it was really tiny at first. And it was like, it appeared like there was a large, well-established cluster, and then a seed got dropped into it and sprouted. And so it was never quite in the same life cycle as all the others. It was never quite right. And so when I finally separated it, I think it was a little bit too late. But that's okay, it happens. But I wanted to show you guys because it doesn't happen super often, thankfully. This is what it looks like when they don't form their new leaves and they die back, or they get rot. It can often look the same. It's just usually mushier, and this black part wouldn't be kind of hard. It would be more squishy and soft, which it's soft, or it's not like it's rubbery though. It's not mushy. But anyways, so if your guys aren't splitting, don't panic, but getting a look, even if you don't pull the whole thing out of the dirt, getting a look at their entire body and where it connects to the root, if they are taking a long time to split, can be a really, really good idea just to make sure this isn't happening. And sometimes if it's rot, if it's a fungal infection, etc., if you catch it early, where it's just kind of got a little bit of discoloration at the base of the roots, you can actually help it. And so if they're taking a long time to split, it never hurts to just kind of check and make sure there's nothing going on. And as long as everything's good to go, don't panic. Let them be, and see what goes. If their root system is terrible, please watch some of the other videos that I've done about trimming the roots and watering them, even if it's in the wrong time of the year, even if they're splitting their leaves, you need to keep their roots watered. This happens all the time when lithops are underwatered. They die back from the root and they just slowly collapse into the plant. And that may very well be what happened with this guy, because he was in with all of the large ones and was getting underwatered, like I said earlier, which is why I separated him, but I just think it was too late. And so if you plant your lithops and people tell you, don't water it, don't give it a drop of water, don't even look at it, or whatever, until spring, or until it splits its leaves, that's not great advice if the root system needs help. If it's a really good established lithops with a healthy root system, then that's good advice, and sparing water until the spring or when the leaves have split and dried up is great advice. But it's not good blanket advice. So just keep that in mind. And if your guys aren't splitting, give them a quick check. And as long as nothing's going on with the roots or looking peaked like this, then just leave them be. And they will likely split and do their thing just fine. I will update you guys when these guys, this big pot that I showed you over there, are splitting more, and some of the other ones that are just now getting to split. But when lithops have been abused, like happens at big box stores, they can also be late in splitting because they are late in forming their new set of leaves. But like I said, this particular variety, oh, there it is, written all out on one of my tags here, so I don't have to add it back in later. The aucampiae, which was named for, was her name Judy or Juanita, I believe. Juanita aucampiae, I believe was her name, that these guys were named after, the species. But anyways, random fact. But this species in particular tends to be slow anyways, and then when you add to it sometimes, big box store abuse or unknowing abuse on our hands at the wrong time of the year, it can really delay them as well. So just keep that in mind and don't panic. Give them lots of light and possibly a drink, depending on how their root system look and if it needs to be stimulated a little bit. You don't want to just soak the pots, but you do want to give them a little bit of moisture to help stimulate new root growth, so that by the time they've shed their outer leaves, their entire root system hasn't died off as well. And like I said, there's lots of other videos here on the channel. There's playlists where you can go and specifically look for just the Lithops videos and see other things about those. So I won't make this incredibly long to go in ahead and explain all of that again. But I wanted to show you guys this. And while I was up for a few minutes, I hope you're all having a fantastic day. I will talk to you soon, and happy growing.